Let's be brutally honest, this wasn't transparency, this was damage control wrapped in a press release. Donald Trump is panicking, and the Epstein files explain exactly why. 3 million documents just dropped, and even with half the evidence still hidden, what's already public is devastating. Not confusing, not ambiguous, devastating. The Trump DOJ keeps repeating the same line. We reviewed 6 million documents and released the most relevant 3 million. Translation, they decided what you're allowed to see. That alone should set off alarms. Because when the people who might be implicated are also the people controlling the release, that's not justice, that's a filter. Trump's name appears over and over. So do the names of his political allies, donors, and powerful figures who have spent years insisting they barely knew Epstein, cut ties early, or were revolted by him. The documents say otherwise. Emails don't lie, timelines don't lie, FBI interview summaries definitely don't lie. And then there's the part no one in the administration wants to talk about, the survivors. The DOJ claimed delays were necessary to protect victims. Then they released files that exposed identifying information anyway, re-traumatizing the very people they promised to protect. Survivors and their attorneys are furious, and they're not mincing words. They're saying this wasn't an accident. They're saying it feels intentional. They're saying they were lied to. And frankly, it's hard to argue with them. Because if protecting victims was the priority, why are names showing up while photos, videos, audio recordings, and internal memos are mysteriously missing? Where is the rest of the evidence? We're expected to believe that Epstein, a documented blackmailer who filmed powerful men, somehow left behind only emails and no multimedia. That's not just implausible, it's insulting. Even worse, some of the most explosive material was briefly posted by the DOJ, then quietly removed, then restored only after journalists had already archived it. That's not a technical glitch, that's panic. If the documents are meaningless, you don't pull them. If they're harmless, you don't hide them. The behavior tells the story. And let's talk about the FBI records. These aren't rumors or internet speculation. These are formal interview summaries describing survivors being introduced to Trump by Ghislaine Maxwell, framed as available, coached on appearance, and escorted to Mar-a-Lago. The administration wants you to shrug this off while insisting there's no evidence. There's evidence. What's missing is accountability. Then there's the hypocrisy. DOJ officials stand at the podium claiming no one received special treatment while simultaneously admitting millions of pages are still unreleased.
Look, we said in July, and it remains as true today as it was in July, if we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them, right? We talked about the work that we're doing. That's why I said that. I said this earlier. There's this built-in assumption that somehow there's this hidden tranche of information of men that we know about that we're covering up or that we're choosing not to prosecute. That is not the case. I don't know whether there are men out there that abuse these women. If we learn about information and evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But I don't think that the public or you all are going to uncover men within the Epstein files that abuse women, unfortunately.
They swear there's no hidden list while deciding behind closed doors what's responsive and what the public supposedly doesn't need. That's not how truth works. And survivors know it. They're openly saying they don't trust this process, they don't trust this DOJ, and they don't believe this is the full Epstein record.
On Epstein, sir, if I may just ask one on that, please. You mentioned a letter to Congress. How and to whom did you notify the White House about the production that you're announcing today before you came out and spoke to us?
How did I do what?
Notify the White House. What was your interface with the White House? You said there's a letter to Congress. Who did you update at the White House about this?
Well, I don't know. I don't really understand the question. You mean who did I update?
Did you provide them an explanation of what today's release would be?
Look, my team has certain communications with the White House. Let me just be clear. They had nothing to do with this review. They had no oversight over this review. They did not tell this department how to do our review, what to look for, what to redact, what to not redact. They absolutely knew that I was doing this press conference today and that we were releasing the materials today. But but there's no oversight by the White House into the process that we've undertaken over the past 60 days.
They're right to feel that way. This entire rollout sends one message loud and clear. Power is still protecting power. Trump wants credit for releasing the files while ensuring the most damaging material stays buried.
He erred on the side of over-collection of materials from various sources to best ensure maximum transparency and compliance, which necessarily means that the number of responsive pages is significantly smaller than the total number of pages initially collected. That's why I mentioned a moment ago, we're releasing more than 3 million pages today and not the 6 million pages that we collected.
Very quickly, can you assure the American public that President Trump, like every other prominent person whose name came up in relation to the Epstein files, that all documents, photos, and anything relevant to him connected to the case are being released?
I mean, yes, I can assure that we complied with the statute, we complied with the act, and there is no, we did not protect President Trump. We didn't protect or not protect anybody. I mean, I think that there's a hunger or a thirst for information that I do not think will be satisfied by the review of these documents. And there's nothing I can do about that. But President Trump, of all the people in Washington, D.C. and around this country that have said for years the same consistent message about Jeffrey Epstein is President Trump. And so there's not been a change of course or anything. And certainly his direction to the American people and his direction to the Department of Justice was to be as transparent, release the files, be as transparent as we can. And that's exactly what we did.
His allies want plausible deniability. The DOJ wants to run out the clock. And the victims are once again being told to accept crumbs and call it justice. No. 3 million documents are still hidden. Critical evidence appears to be missing. Survivors were exposed instead of protected.
I mean, that's an incredible story that you could pick up that he was a pervert.
It's gross. The guy's gross. Right with my wife. And he's gross. The guy's gross. This was not, the deep nuance of Howard Lutnick. This guy's gross.
Right. So how come Bill Gates and all these other people could hang around him and not see what you saw? Or did they see it and ignore it? Or
no, they participated.
Right.
That's what his MO was, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever. Blackmailed people. That's how he had money. So
what happened to those videos? Why is there now such a dearth of information when, Donald Trump's people are running the FBI and the DOJ?
I assume way back when they traded those videos in exchange for him getting that 18-month sentence, which allowed him to have visits and be out of jail. I mean, he's a serial sex offender. How could he get 18 months and be able to go to his office during the day and have visitors and stuff? It must have been a trade. So my assumption, I have no knowledge, but my assumption is there was a trade for the videos because there were people on those videos.
And have you talked to Donald Trump about this and shared your theory?
No, I mean, he knows the story.
Right.
But my story, that, I was one and done with the guy. He knows that story, but that's it.
He was your neighbor for 10 years. How well did you know him?
All right. So we are in number 11 and he lives in number 9.
Right.
So we renovate, we buy our house, and our house is pigeons and mice.
Right.
Okay. That's it. It was derelict.
Right.
So we rebuild our house. We move in 2005. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein is arrested in like 08, I think, or something like that.
Right.
So knock on the door. His assistant on like a Saturday says, Mr. Epstein, your neighbor would like to invite you over for coffee. So my wife and I go next door. We walk the 7 steps, right, to the next house for coffee. We share a wall.
Right.
Right. So it's New York City. So he invites us in. We have coffee in this, and he says, do you want a tour? We said, great.
Interesting.
He's got a really big house.
Every room you went into?
He's got, well, I'll tell you. So his house is like super big, really wide. And, So he gives me a tour in the living room, big living room. And then across from it is double doors. I assume it's the dining room.
Yeah.
And he opens the doors and there's a massage table in the middle of the room.
Ooh.
And candles all around and stuff. So I ask very insightful, cutting questions. I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often do you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me.
Ooh.
And he says, and the right kind of massage.
Ooh.
Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry. We have to go. And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
Oh,
So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
And what we did see directly contradicts years of denials. This isn't closure. This isn't transparency. This is the early stage of a cover-up unraveling. And the harder they insist there's nothing left to see, the more obvious it becomes. There's a lot more they don't want you to read. Stay loud.